Shalom. Baruch Hashem, we're going to do our Kuntres Hahispaalus class, probably the last one before Pesach break. And we're going to review what we discussed last time, which is we did paragraph 2 and 3 in the third chapter. So the third chapter is going to take its time to explain what is truly difference between the hispaalus that our nefesh elokis has and the hispaalus that our nefesh hativis has. We definitely, these are two absolutely separate entities, and nefesh elokis encloses itself in the nefesh habahamis, and we need to understand what exactly the difference. Now, what we do know that the nefesh habahamis is the main sensory for us to understand how things are being processed in terms of our conscious awareness, because nefesh elokis is not necessarily consciously developed, consciously aware in our body. So let's go through the summary in paragraph 2 that the hispaalus elokis, is not produced by intellectual understanding itself, but by divine essence within the understanding. Okay, and that awakens the inner attachment, the inner dveikus towards elokus, right? And the hispaalus of elokus is essential, and it's a natural hispaalus. Okay, it's not something that requires hisboinanos, right? It is dveikus, and in the godly soul, in nefesh elokis, and it happens naturally and essentially, not because of intellectual analysis. Just as a person is attached to the physical life beyond reason, okay? We're not attached to our life because of anything, but it's just a fact. Because it also says, Ki hu chayecha, that Shem is our life. So by nefesh elokis, this awareness is embedded in how she perceives everything. This is the primary reality for nefesh elokis, and it's very, very natural thing. So this, the cleaving towards godliness, is not something is due to any kind of hisboinanos. So, and even if it comes through the hisboinanos, the source of it is much, much deeper. The hispaalus elokis in the nefesh elokis may appear through comprehension, right, through our analysis, but the emotions is not caused by the intellectual depth. The emotions that it comes from elokus within the idea. Because we, in the end, mispoil over the godly idea of a study of Hasidus that openly discusses the ideas of Hashem. And therefore, although it's coming through contemplation into Hasidus, but it's not because of understanding part of it, the analysis, the analytical, the intellectual part of it, but that's because of the elokus that's being enclosed in these ideas. So now, the evidence from the experience, right? We see that when a person hears Hasidus, it moves a person far more than the hearing ordinary human wisdom, right? And even if the human idea is intellectually deeper, it does not create the same inner stirring. Now, that's simply a proof that it's not coming from the understanding of things. It's coming because our neshama senses elokus that's in the concept. Now, understanding does not guarantee hispaalus. Okay, some people understand divine concept in Hasidus and deeply, but feel no inner arousal. Why is it? Others understand very little and feel very deeply moved. So what does it really depend on? If we claim that it depends on the hispaalus, on the hasagah, on the understanding, then it doesn't really make sense, because for fact, we do know that there are some people understand the divine concept deeply, but feel no inner arousal. And others understand very little and feel very deeply moved. So therefore, we must say that hispaalus cannot come from intellect alone. So what is the source and the root of the soul? The hispaalus depends on where the soul is rooted. And this is very, very essential to understand, that the neshama of Bria strongly moves by the divine understanding. Now, ruach of Yetzirah if the neshama is coming from the ruach of Yetzirah, this is mainly emotional love and fear of Hashem. The people from nefesh level are from Asiya, primarily devoted to practical actions. It's called from kastivis, right? The divine hispaalus is the soul's natural attachment to Hashem, awakened through elokus within the idea, right? And its intensity depends on the spiritual root of the soul rather than the depth of intellectual understanding. So that's where we left off with a summary of paragraph 2, and then the summary of paragraph 3. What is the difference between the divine hispaalus, meaning the hispaalus of nefesh elokis, and the hispaalus of nefesh behemis? Okay. Because truly both are moved by elokus. Right? That's a little chidush that he gives us in paragraph number 3. So even when the animal soul becomes spiritually aroused, it's not because of intellectual understanding itself, although we must say that nefesh abahamis gets moved through nefesh hasichlis, through intellectual faculties that she possesses, but it's not the understanding itself, but it moved by ordinary human wisdom. And it's not through ordinary human wisdom, but only through divine concepts that are enclosed in the godly concepts, right? So Chassidus discusses inyone elokus, and the nefesh bahamis gets excited about things, not because of understanding itself, but because sensing elokus within that. So now, why the second idea is that the divine arousal actually transforms the animal soul, right? It moves it from its original state, right? When animal soul experiences this type of godly hispaalus, what happens is that it uproots worldly desires, right? And leaves the person with one desire is for Hashem alone. So when that thing happens, we see that it's not the intellect that persuaded the animal soul to change its ways and to uproot its desires. It's the elokus that's enclosed in these ideas, right? This shows the source was the sensing elokus and not intellectual reason. Now, the main difference between the two souls, right, is difference is not the emotional arousal itself, because each one is being, either the godly soul or the animal soul is aroused emotionally, but the nature of understanding that produces it, okay? And that's where we need a little bit deeper explanations. Both are forms of hispaalus of elokus, but the type of comprehension behind them is fundamentally different. Now, the divine soul's comprehension. The divine soul originates from Atzilus. Therefore, its intellect, emotions, and actions are inherently divine. Okay? Now, its comprehension is natural, and it's very godly oriented, because nefesh elokis is not interested in having any discussion other than about God, right? So now the animal soul's comprehension is slightly different. The animal soul originates from klipas nogah, okay, not from Atzilus. How? Through the parent's natural soul. Through the parent's nefesh bahamis, that's how our nefesh bahamis is created, right? Its natural mode is understanding is yeshus, is self-centered existence, okay? Only when divine light shines into it, it can temporarily transform to grasp ideas of bittul, of nullification, okay? But that's still a very, very difficult task for nefesh bahamis. Or when the divine light shines on nefesh bahamis, it could also permanently be transformed like tzadikim gemurim. Okay, but both of them, right? Both of the divine souls and the animal soul can experience, and actually not can, they are experiencing the arousal from elokus, even if it goes through an intellect, okay, through like study of something, right? But the nefesh elokis understanding of Hashem is very, very different than animal soul's understanding of Hashem. Why? Because the nefesh bahamis is naturally self-oriented and only becomes godly when illuminated by godly light. Okay, because her perception is through yesh, and the perception of nefesh elokis is through ayin. Now, let's just remember that Nefesh Bahamas is yesh, Nefesh Elokis is ayin. And that by itself is a big chiddush to understand that. And that's definitely something that we could delve deeper into. Why? Because it takes time to understand what is the difference between ayin and yesh. Okay? And sometimes it may not necessarily be what we think it is. So instead of just guessing, let's look inside the text, and we're going to go to paragraph number 4. I'm sharing my screen now. Okay, and here we go. Okay, paragraph number 4. V'hine lahavin betosefes biur mahus hahispaalus hanefesh elokis. Right, and now further, we need to understand additionally the explanations of what is the essence, what is the nature of the hispaalus of the godly soul, b'bchinas hasagah, b'yosa milubeshes b'hasagah the nefesh, right? A soul within the comprehension, when it's enclosed within the comprehension of the animal soul, right? Because truly, that's how we want to understand here. And I will agree with you that it is a very complicated structure, that where Nefesh Bahamas becomes the vessel for the understanding of the Nefesh Elokis, meaning the Nefesh Elokis comprehension when it's enclosed within the animal soul. Okay, that's one way of how she sees God. Okay, and obviously when she's in the realms of Gan Eden and beyond, her own understanding without the limitations, without shining through the animal soul, is very different. Okay, so let's just keep that understanding. Whatever we are discussing, this is specifically the comprehension of godly soul when it's enclosed within the comprehension of the animal soul. Okay. Right? This is understood that we find that the neshamas, they derive great pleasure from the radiance of the Shechinah in Gan Eden. Right? And this pleasure is specifically a delight within the comprehension. Okay, so now because they triggering the oneg that they have in this understanding that whatever they're studying there. Okay, shesham baha oneg b'hizgalos b'harchava v'nikra gan, because the delight that comes in the revelation there, okay, it comes in a very expanded form, and that's why it's called Gan. So that's what Gan Eden. Okay, so this is the Gan Eden. Because Gan, it's like a beautiful garden. Okay, so that has that sense of harchava. The pleasure of the hasagah is experienced through that harchava. Okay, masha'enkin b'chochmah ha'oneg ne'elam v'nikra Eden. Right, where in Chochmah the delight is concealed, and it's called Eden. Okay, so there is a level of Eden, that's a level of Chochmah, and then there is a level of God. Okay, that's where the hasagah, the comprehension, the bina part of it, right? So now the Eden is Chochmah, and this is Gan Eden, meaning there's Eden, there's a level of Eden, and then there's a level of Gan, that's a lower level. Okay, so we need to understand how is the neshama is deriving that pleasure, that hispaalus. Okay? Okay, v'hine b'chinas hasagah shebeneshama shebegan Eden hu mufshetet mibchinat yesh the nogah betachlis. So we must understand that the comprehension of the soul in Gan Eden is completely voided of the aspect of yesh of nogah whatsoever, right? Because she is deriving that pleasure all the way from Chochmah, right? And the Chochmah is in a state of ayin. So whatever else is going on in Chochmah, it's not being derived from yesh of nogah. Ki gam shesham gam ken hu melubeshet b'levush de nogah, right? Even though there is two, it is enclosed in the garment of nogah. Aval hu me'achar habirur, but that's only after the refinement of nogah. V'nigra levushe dithya, okay, the nogah, the chashmal, okay, bria or yitzira. And it's called pure garments from the nogah of chashmal, of bria and yitzira. Okay, now we're not going to go into what chashmal is. You just need to understand that the Gan Eden operate on the two levels, which is the bria and yitzira. Okay, the lower Gan Eden and the high Gan Eden. And there, although it also uses the garments of nogah, but that's only after its purification. He klula miyud koiches ta'anog v'rotzein sechel u'midas chulu. And certainly the soul, as it exists in Gan Eden, is comprised of 10 faculties, which is the oneg, the rotzein, the moichin, the intellect, and the emotions. Okay, so it has a full package. Okay, but yesh. And all these 10 faculties of her neshama, they are completely voided of the aspect of yesh. And they are in a state of divine ayin itself. Okay? Mer al yada or ha'eloki b'neshama, al yadam, right? Or ha'eloki b'neshama, b'li tzumtzum v'elam klal. And therefore the divine line shines within the soul without any contraction or concealment whatsoever, right? Because it does not have to go through this this concealment of nogah, because the garments of nogah are already purified, so they do not have anything on their own through which the light will be captured and shined through any symptom. Okay. So to understand this at first glance, since they are differentiated faculties, they would seem to be yesh, right? So we'll look at it. Look at all the 10 faculties of nogah. I'm sorry, the 10 faculties of the godly soul. A person might think like, hey, okay, there got to be a tzimtzum there. Why? Because we're talking about 10. What's the difference? What makes them different? Okay. Why is it? So why is it? To understand this at first glance, since they are differentiated faculties, okay, they are different, okay, that would seem to be yesh. And how can it be said that they are in a state of divine ayin? Uyuvan, lefi dati, right? Lefi erech dati, right? And says it understood according to my humble understanding. V'b'sari erza, okay? She'eino royim she'ha-chochmah mi'ayin timatzen, right? That if we see that, you know, from my flesh I perceive, this is a saying from Yov, right? For we see that the Chochmah is found from ayin. So what is it? Ve'im kein, a Chochmah hi klula mi beiz bechinas, ayin ve'yesh keyedua. So the Chochmah includes two aspects of ayin and yesh, as it is known. Okay. The kol alu batel be'ilasei. For every effect is nullified in its cause. Okay, we all know that part of creation is cause and effect, right? And every effect is nullified in its cause. Okay, and this nullification within its source is the primary basis for the yesh existence. Okay, so what's causing this yesh to exist? The ayin, where it's coming from. Rak shekol ila v'alu habitul shebe'ila shebatel be'ilasi hu gamken bebchinas yesh kivan sha'ila atzmahi bebchinas yesh. However, in ordinary cause and effects, right, meaning down this world, okay, the nullification of the effect and its cause is still considered yesh. Why? Since the cause itself is yesh. So what we're talking about, the realm of Chochmah, is ayin and yesh. The yesh is coming from ayin, so the yesh is batel to the ayin. But when we are talking about this world, the known cause and effect, the cause is in a state of yesh, the effect is also in the state of yesh. So whatever causing it, the cause is nullified to the yesh that is causing it, but both of them are yesh, so therefore there's no possibility of ayin to exist at that understanding. Okay, mashenkin b'chinas ha-chochmah, shemakoyre hi b'chinas ayin, whereas the chochmah, whose source is in the state of ayin, kiva chochmah nimtzed mimenu b'derech dilug, okay, and which emerges from it in the manner of a leap, which is called dilug, b'imkein bitul b'makoyre hi b'chinas ayin, and therefore its nullification in its source is ayin, since it is included with them. Kivan shi klula b'chinas ayin. Okay, so that's a very logical thing to understand. Okay, whatever the origin, that's how it's coming. Right. So now, when we observe the Chochmah, we sometimes see that only ayin aspect of Chochmah alone is revealed. Right? For example, those of you who participate in our Shar Yechud class, we had during our first first chapter, okay, we clearly discussed when the Rav was quiet. Okay, whenever his students presented him with a question. So that's when only the ayin aspect of Chochmah was revealed, right? Rav. Right? And this is when the great sage was silent and he wasn't able to reveal the reasoning of his ruling. So the reasoning of his ruling was the yesh, but he was only in a state of ayin. Why is it? His yash was hasagah, right? Because it was not yet enclosed in the letters that settle into comprehension. Okay, now, why is it? But yeah, the intellect and the reasoning are present within him in a revealed essence of something. It's already something, right? But it's not something that can be expressed through letters yet. So therefore, his ruling was a correct ruling, but he wasn't able to actually enclose it in letters. Okay? But kol gilui metzius davar ma hu b'bchinas yesh, and every revealed existence of something is yesh. So how can we say that he was in the state of ayin d'chochmah? He still already had something concrete, a very concrete ruling. How can we say that he was in the state of chochmah? And therefore, we must say that there are two kinds of yesh. Yes, and now we're going even deeper. Before we were introduced just to yesh v'ayin, but now we said even in yesh there are two kinds of yesh. What two kinds of yesh? Ha'alev b'chinas yesh she'eino mastir klal al b'chinas ayin. The first one is the aspect of yesh that does not conceal the ayin at all. Okay? Rak hu po'el tfisas ha'ayin tiyeh b'chinas gilui legabe eze mekama. But what it does, it rather enables the ayin to be grasped in revelation relative to the receiver. Okay, so that's very, very essential for us to understand that there is some kind of revelation is going on there, but that revelation is not concealing. Now, the second type of revelation, habez b'chinas yesh hamastir, and the second revelation is that conceals the ayin. Okay, mastir al b'chinas ayin. V'kachu b'chochmah. So now we're going to go back to Chochmah now. See where there we see yesh she'eino mastir and yesh shemastir. Shelefamim nidgal b'chinas ayin d'chochmah b'chinas oisius atzmim. And so in Chochmah, sometimes the ayin of Chochmah is revealed in essential letters. And these essential letters have no concealment whatsoever. She'einam palim b'shum hester klal. Rak gilui. Bekli moach ha'atzmai, right? But it's only revealed within the vessel of the mind to oneself. Bekasher ya'amig bo yochel lahasig boy be'ilui achar ilui. And when he deepens in it, he can grasp it within himself. Okay? Higher and higher. Be'ilui achar ilui. Okay? Aval lo yochol lifoil boy bechinas hayirida lemata, v'lechen lo yochol lahavinu lacherim. But when that happens, he cannot affect within it the power of descent downwards. Therefore, he cannot explain it to others. Okay, so he could go ilu achar ilu, ayin to ayin, ayin to ayin. There is a hispaalus of the ayins. Okay, even though this is something yesh, but it's yesh that reveals, not yesh that conceals. Masha ein kain, ishe mitgale haseichel b'bchinas oisius hamastirim al or haseichel, right? Whereas when the intellect is revealed in letters that conceal the light of intellect, as nigla or haseichel b'bchinas yesh the Chochmah, then the light of intellect is revealed in the form of yesh of Chochmah. Okay, yuchal ifoil boy, gam ken koach hayirida. And then it can also affect the power of the descent downwards, descent after descent to the ultimate degree. Okay? Right? Until it can be explained even to a very smallest recipient. Okay, so that will require yesh master. Okay? Because at the time when the intellect is fully revealed, okay, to the extent that a person is unable to even put it in the limiting words. He only has essential ICs because that's what he was able to make a psagdin. Let's go back to that Rav, that was able to do the psagdin, meaning his psagdin was a correct psagdin, okay, but his he did not change his psagdin. He was no problem. When he was challenged with an explanation, he wasn't able to explain why he ruled that way, but not because he didn't know what he was talking about. He couldn't do that because the light was still very, very brightly shining, and he only had the essential letters, okay, shining, and therefore he needed to contract the intellect in order to put it nicely in words and explanations. That's more the bina part of it, and to give over to his talmidim why there was such a ruling. Okay, but he at that moment wasn't able to do that. Okay, so that essential. But for him to understand going deeper, higher and higher, he had no problem with that. He could do that. Why not? But whenever there's a yesh mastir, that ability to package it in a way where the light is not so intense, okay, and so the recipients are capable of understanding it. That's already a different level, a totally different level of interaction. And then when there is yesh mastir, it could actually be explained to the smallest recipients. So there is an advantage of that as well. So yeah, that's where we at the moment. And Baruch Hashem, it's a gorgeous, beautiful sun out there. And we're having this workshop actually in our school's backyard, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, I hope this is something something that we can understand. So where are we going with all this? With yesh and ayin, yesh, where we're going is that we want to understand what is the difference, the qualitative difference of how Nefesh Elokis understands and how Nefesh Bahamas understands, right? And we mentioned that Nefesh Elokis understands through ayin and Nefesh Bahamas understands through yesh. And now we need to understand what that exactly means. What's ayin? What's yesh? So we now discuss the aspect of ayin, okay, of Chochmah, where in that aspect of ayin, there is yesh, okay? That is being completely nullified to the ayin. And then that's called yesh shelo eino master. And then there's yesh that is master, that is concealing. And that's, the explanation. This is where we are at the moment with our paragraph form. So hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And Bezrat Hashem, I'll be in touch, and I'll post an email regarding our next session, if we're gonna have it, and if yes, what time, and all the details. Okay, beautiful. Thank you for watching this, and Bezrat Hashem, we will be in touch. All the best. Enjoy the rest of your day.